My boyfriend no longer touched me. I don't know exactly when things changed, but suddenly, everything felt different. The spark we once had was gone, and I found myself yearning for something more. Something that would make me feel alive again. I remember when everything was perfect. When every kiss, every touch, meant the world to me. But now all of that had faded away. I felt lonely, even when I was with him. It was as if we were living in different worlds, and I didn't know how to reconnect. Alex and I met in college. It was love at first sight, or at least that's what I thought. We were inseparable, always together, always laughing. But over time things changed. The routine took over, and the magic we once had seemed to disappear. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I reached out to hold his hand. He pulled away, barely noticing my gesture. It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes. I felt a pang in my chest, a mix of sadness and frustration. I wanted to talk about it, to understand what was happening. But every time I tried, he brushed it off, saying everything was fine. Days turned into weeks, and the distance between us grew wider. I tried to fill the void with work, with friends, with anything that would distract me from the emptiness I felt. But it was never enough. I needed more, something real, something that would make me feel whole again. One night, after a particularly tense dinner where we barely spoke, I decided to go out. I needed to escape the silence, the tension, the feeling of being trapped. I ended up at a local bar, a place I hadn't been to in years. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and music. It was a stark contrast to the quiet, sterile environment I had left behind. I sat at the bar, nursing a drink, lost in my thoughts. That's when I noticed him. He was sitting a few stools down, his eyes fixed on the television above the bar. There was something about him, a quiet intensity that drew me in. He turned and caught me looking at him. He smiled, and I felt a flutter in my stomach, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. He introduced himself as Jake. We started talking, and it was easy, natural. He listened to me, really listened, in a way that Alex never did. He asked about my life, my dreams, my fears. And I found myself opening up to him, sharing things I hadn't shared with anyone in a long time. As the night wore on, we moved to a quieter corner of the bar. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and I felt a connection, a spark that I hadn't felt in years. Jake was charming, attentive, and he made me feel seen, heard, and understood. It was intoxicating, and I found myself drawn to him in a way that was both exciting and terrifying. We exchanged numbers, and over the next few days, we texted constantly. Our conversations were filled with laughter, flirtation, and a sense of anticipation. I found myself looking forward to his messages, to the moments when we could talk, when I could escape the reality of my life with Alex. One evening, Jake invited me to meet him at a cozy cafe downtown. I hesitated for a moment, knowing that this was a line I was about to cross. But the pull was too strong, the need for connection too great. I agreed to meet him. The cafe was warm and inviting, filled with the aroma of fresh coffee and pastries. Jake was already there, sitting at a table by the window. He stood up as I approached, his eyes lighting up with a genuine smile. We sat down, and the conversation flowed as easily as it had that first night at the bar. As we talked, I felt a growing sense of guilt. I knew what I was doing was wrong, that I was betraying Alex in a way that was unforgivable. But at the same time, I felt alive, more alive than I had in a long time. Jake made me feel things I hadn't felt in years, and I couldn't ignore that. Over the next few weeks, Jake and I saw each other more frequently. We met at cafes, at parks, anywhere we could find a quiet moment together. Our conversations deepened, and our connection grew stronger. I found myself falling for him, falling hard, and it was both exhilarating and terrifying. One evening as we sat in his car, parked in a quiet spot overlooking the city, Jake reached out and took my hand. His touch was gentle, yet firm, and it sent a shiver down my spine. He looked into my eyes, and I saw a mix of desire and tenderness that took my breath away. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice soft yet filled with emotion. "I know this is complicated, but I can't ignore what I'm feeling." I felt a lump in my throat, a mix of guilt and longing. I knew I should pull away, that I should end this before it went any further. But I couldn't. I was drawn to him, to the way he made me feel, to the promise of something more. I feel the same way, I whispered, my voice barely audible. I don't know what to do, but I can't ignore this either. He leaned in, his lips brushing against mine in a soft, tender kiss. It was a moment of pure connection, a moment that felt both right and wrong. I knew I was crossing a line, that I was betraying Alex in a way that was unforgivable. But in that moment, all I could think about was Jake, about the way he made me feel, about the promise of something more. As the days turned into weeks, our relationship deepened. We stole moments together whenever we could, our conversations filled with dreams and plans for the future. I found myself imagining a life with Jake, a life filled with love, laughter, and passion. It was a stark contrast to the emptiness I felt with Alex, and it was both exhilarating and terrifying. But as our relationship grew stronger, so did the guilt. I knew I couldn't keep living this double life, that I had to make a choice. I had to decide between the safety and familiarity of my life with Alex and the passion and excitement of my life with Jake. One evening, as I sat alone in my room, I knew I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep living this way, torn between two worlds, between two loves. I had to choose, and I had to do it soon. I thought about Alex, about the life we had built together, about the promises we had made. I thought about the good times, the laughter, the love. But I also thought about the distance, the silence, the feeling of being trapped. I knew that staying with him would mean living a life of quiet desperation, a life filled with regret and longing. And then I thought about Jake, about the passion, the connection, the promise of something more. I thought about the way he made me feel, about the dreams we shared, about the future we could build together. I knew that choosing him would mean taking a risk, stepping into the unknown, but it also meant the chance for happiness, for love, for a life filled with meaning. As I sat there, lost in my thoughts, I knew what I had to do. I had to be honest with myself and with Alex. I had to face the truth, no matter how painful it was. I had to make a choice, and I had to do it now. The next day, I sat down with Alex. I told him everything, about the distance, the loneliness, the feeling of being trapped. I told him about Jake, about the connection, the passion, the promise of something more. I told him the truth, no matter how painful it was. Alex listened, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and anger. He didn't say much, but I could see the pain in his eyes, the betrayal, the heartache. It was a moment of pure honesty, a moment that was both liberating and devastating. In the end, we decided to go our separate ways. It was a difficult decision, filled with tears and heartache, but it was the right one. I knew that staying with Alex would mean living a life of quiet desperation, a life filled with regret and longing. And I knew that choosing Jake meant taking a risk, stepping into the unknown, but it also meant the chance for happiness, for love, for a life filled with meaning. As I walked away from Alex, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I knew that this was the end of one chapter, but it was also the beginning of a new one. I was stepping into the unknown, taking a risk, but I was also choosing happiness, choosing love, choosing a life filled with meaning. And as I looked to the future, I knew that whatever lay ahead, I was ready. I was ready to face the challenges, to embrace the adventures, to live a life filled with love, laughter, and passion. I was ready to choose happiness, to choose love, to choose a life filled with meaning. What I discovered that day was more than just a moment of truth, more than just a decision. It was the key to understanding myself in a way that I never had before. It was the beginning of a new kind of relationship, one built on honesty and vulnerability, and I knew that, no matter what, this chapter of my life would never be forgotten. It was a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, we can find the connections that make us who we are. But the journey was far from over. As I began to build a new life with Jake, I realized that the challenges were just beginning. We faced obstacles, both internal and external, that tested our relationship and our resolve. One of the first challenges we faced was the judgment of those around us. Friends and family struggled to understand our decision, and many were quick to judge. They saw our relationship as a betrayal, a mistake, and their disapproval was palpable. It was a difficult time, filled with tension and conflict, but Jake and I stood firm in our decision. We knew that what we had was real, and we were determined to prove it to everyone, including ourselves. Another challenge was the lingering guilt I felt. Despite knowing that I had made the right decision, I couldn't shake the feeling of having hurt Alex. I thought about him often, wondering how he was coping, if he was okay. It was a constant battle, a tug of war between my past and my present, and it was something I had to confront head-on. Jake was incredibly supportive during this time. He listened to my fears, my doubts, my regrets. He held me when I cried, reassured me when I faltered, and loved me through it all. His unwavering support was a beacon of light in the darkness, a reminder that I was not alone, that we were in this together. As the months passed, Jake and I began to build a life together. We moved into a small apartment, filled it with our dreams and our love. We created a space that was uniquely ours, a sanctuary where we could be ourselves, where we could grow and thrive. But even as we settled into our new life, the challenges continued. Financial struggles, career setbacks, and the everyday stresses of life tested our relationship. There were times when we argued, when we disagreed, when we questioned our decisions, but through it all, we remained steadfast in our commitment to each other, to our love, to our future. One evening, as we sat on the balcony of our apartment, watching the sunset, Jake turned to me and said, "You know, I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone who understands me, who challenges me, who loves me for who I am. I'm so grateful for you, for us, for everything we have." I felt a warmth spread through me as I looked at him, his eyes filled with love and gratitude. It was a moment of pure connection, a reminder of why we had chosen this path, why we had fought so hard for our love. "I feel the same way," I replied, my voice filled with emotion. "I never thought I'd find someone who makes me feel so alive, so loved, so understood. I'm grateful for you, for us, for everything we have and everything we will build together." As we sat there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I knew that this was just the beginning. This was the start of a new chapter, a new adventure, a new life filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. But even as we looked to the future with hope and excitement, we knew that the challenges would continue. Life is never easy, never straightforward, and we were prepared to face whatever came our way. We knew that our love was strong, that our bond was unbreakable, and that together, we could overcome anything. And so we continued to build our life together, one day at a time, one step at a time. We faced the challenges, embraced the adventures, and cherished the moments of pure connection and love. We knew that this was our journey, our story, and we were determined to make it the best it could be. What I discovered that day, what I continue to discover every day, is that love is a journey. It's a journey filled with ups and downs, with challenges and triumphs, with heartache and joy. It's a journey that requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to face the unknown. But it's also a journey that is worth every step, every moment, every breath. And as I look to the future, I know that whatever lies ahead, I am ready. I am ready to face the challenges, to embrace the adventures, to live a life filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. I am ready to choose happiness, to choose love, to choose a life filled with meaning, because in the end, that's what matters most. It's the connections we make, the love we share, the moments we cherish. It's the journey we take, the story we create, the life we build together. And I know, no matter what, that this chapter of my life, this journey of love, will never be forgotten. It will always be a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, we can find the connections that make us who we are.